Ready?
Yes.
All right, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Welcome to the December 12th, 2024 meeting of the Board of County Commissioners for Shawnee County. My name is Kevin Cook. Serve as the chair this year. Joining me today is Commissioner Aaron Mays. Good morning.
Morning.
Commissioner Bill Rippon.
Morning.
Rich Eckert is our county counselor.
Good morning.
And Ms. Beck, how many days left?
It'll be 1 month from tomorrow.
On the short termer now.
I'm short-termer, yeah.
Our county clerk. So,
Okay.
Ms. Beck, what do we have beginning this morning?
Okay, first item, presentations, Project Topeka check presentation, and Amanda.
Thank you, Cindy. Amanda Monholland, Public Information Officer in the Commission Office. I am here today to do a check presentation for the fundraising that has taken place over the year for Project Topeka. We raised a total of $3,134.70, and of that we had a biscuits and gravy fundraiser that was held at the courthouse from the treasurer's office. We had from our apparel website, we raised $180. And the DOC held a lunch with selling burritos and fish sandwiches. And last one we had was our online auction for countywide, and for the grand total of $3,134. I do have a few representatives here from Project Topeka, Mary Ann and Dan McFerrin. Probably gonna say that wrong? Okay, I got it, all right. So Dan, did you want to come and say a couple words?
I'm Dan McFerrin, the treasurer of Project Topeka. Just real quick, Project Topeka, we've been around since 1986, so we've been around for 38 years, doing the right math. In every year, Shawnee County employees are one of our biggest supporters, biggest fundraisers. I think it's great because these are Shawnee County employees. The money that goes to us stays here, doesn't go anywhere. It goes to local agencies, helps local food banks. We are an all-volunteer organization, so there's no overhead, no people to pay, so the money they raise goes and stays here. And it's really cool to see county employees supporting people in the county, and we really appreciate it. Like I said, they're one of our biggest supporters every year and have been for decades, so we really thank them for it.
We want to thank you for everything that you do in the community. A lot of families are affected and impacted in a positive way by the work of Project Topeka, so it's going to a very good cause. Commissioners, do you have anything else additional?
I just want to thank you for everything that you do.
Yeah.
Lastly, I wanted to go ahead, and we do have some of our representatives from our charitable fundraising committee here today, that they were here. If you could please stand up. And then I guess at this time, if you guys would like to take a photo real quick?
Yeah. All right, monthly check presentation. Great. Everybody in there? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Freddie.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay. Ms. Beck, what do we have next?
Next is item 3, consent agenda.
Are there any questions regarding the consent agenda, or is there a motion?
I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Rippon to approve the consent agenda, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item 4, new business. A, County Clerk number 1, consider all voucher payments.
This morning we have vouchers totaling $4,110,769.50. I got 3 items I want to point out on there. $177,430.79 to KBS Constructors is for the state grant portion of November's work on the DOC mental health facility. Then we've got $271,595 to Sunflower and 70 cents to Sunflower Paving under special assessment. It's for the street and storm sewer improvements in Sterling Chase subdivision. Then $284,374.35 also to Sunflower Paving under infrastructure is the final pavement on the roundabout at 46th Street and Highway 75. I don't have any questions or concerns with any of these and would move for approval.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays to approve, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B, Planning Department, number 1, public hearing and consider approval of resolution number 2024-83, a reconsideration to amend the district zoning classification from RR1 Residential Reserve District to PUD, Planned Unit Development, with an underlying zoning of M1, two-family dwelling district on property located at Northwest Rochester Road in Soldier Township.
Good morning, Commissioners. Shawnee, Director of the Planning Department. And I'm going to make one little amendment to that header because it's actually a consideration to amend the district classification. While we did send this back to the Planning Commission and they reconsidered it, the three of you have not yet considered it here in person. I did come here in front of you a month or so ago, or a couple of months ago actually, and you had sent it back to the Planning Commission, but we did not have an actual public hearing at that time. So it is a consideration of the modification of the zoning classification. Okay, so as was mentioned, this is a public hearing. The request today is to amend the district zoning classification from RR1 to a PUD, which stands for a planned unit development. The underlying zoning of that is going to be M1 for two-family dwelling district. The proposed development is going to include 13 duplexes with a private street on 11.52 acres. I will point out that the owner of the project does own 35 acres, and so this only takes up a small percentage of that total acreage. The location of this is north of, on Rochester Road, 1,000 feet north of Page Lane, and it is located in Soldier Township. As mentioned, this matter was first heard by the Planning Commission on Monday, June 10, 2024. The applicant at that time was requesting to put on 15 duplexes or 30 units on 7 acres. And so this has changed a little bit from when this plan was originally heard. The wastewater service at that time was proposed to be a lagoon. It was going to be a private lagoon that serviced just those houses. 28 neighbors showed up at that public hearing and spoke in opposition. They submitted to my office hundreds of petitions in opposition. And the Planning Commission heard it that night and did recommend denial of the project 4-0. And I will point out that our Planning Commission does have 7 members, but at that point, 1 position was vacant and two people were absent, so 4 of the people were present to hear the matter. The concerns raised at that time were traffic, site distances and the entrances that were proposed, density of the project, and a large objection to the lagoon. After that project, we also received protest petitions, which are in opposition to just regular petitions. The regular petitions show up just voicing an objection. A protest petition is a legal petition filed with the clerk, whereby we have to consider those in consideration here at the Board of County Commissioners meeting. And I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a few minutes. On July 11, the proposal came here in front of you at the BCC. At that time, I identified that the original proposal by the applicant had been recommended for denial, and that the applicant came to me after the Planning Commission meeting and indicated that he planned on changing the plan quite significantly. There were a lot of concerns that were addressed, and he wanted to speak to each of those concerns and make some changes to the project. Because the Planning Commission had not heard those concerns, my recommendation to you was that we send it back to the Planning Commission to hear his new plan and the proposed changes that were going to be made. You did in fact vote 3-0 to take that action and asked that a traffic study be conducted as a part of that additional consideration. So what exactly is a PUD? It is a form of development that's characterized by a unified site design. That means a master plan. As a part of the approval, we approve a master plan that signifies where the roads go, where the houses go, where the septic goes, where trees and bushes go, if there's access control. It lays out everything that goes into this neighborhood, and then that's what the developer has to follow. PUD does not have to be houses. It could be different kinds of businesses. It could be mixed uses of businesses. It could be mixed uses of housing and businesses. The whole point of the PUD is the fact that you can come in and combine all of these different types of uses or put specific restrictions on it, and it falls under that master plan. It allows planning departments and municipalities greater flexibility to be creative, innovative, and imaginative with development. It allows us to put multiple zones or zoning areas into one area. And it can also allow multiple homes on one site. In Shawnee County, if you have a single-family residential parcel or a residential reserve parcel, you can't put more than one home on that site. This allows you to have more than one home on a single site. A PUD can also be at the same time subdivided, where you have multiple parcels within that PUD. In this situation, we don't. We're going to have one single parcel. The applicant does not intend to sell these houses. He does intend to own them in full. As the project moves forward, he would be the owner and he would use them as rental properties. The PUD is subject to limitations and conditions set forth within that master plan. If the applicant wishes to modify the master plan, then he has to come back to the planning department and either ask for a minor amendment to that plan, which can be approved by the planning director, or they can ask for a major amendment, which then has to go in front of the planning commission and come back here to the Board of County Commissioners with a new public hearing. My point in saying that is that once this master plan is considered and if it's approved, it can't just be changed at the drop of a hat. That plan has to be followed unless they come in for an amendment. I like to consider PUDs as having layers because you have that, we're changing it to a PUD, but you also have that underlying layer of the M1 zoning. In this case, the PUD is going to utilize a private street, which means that it's not going to be accepted by a township or the county, and it's not going to be maintained by a township or a county. The owner of the PUD is responsible for maintaining that street. So then looking specifically at the project that you're considering today, it does fall within the 3-mile radius of the city of Topeka. We've worked with the city of Topeka on this project, and it does have to be platted. And so not only is he going through the process here in front of you, but he's also going through a process with the city of Topeka for that plat. As a part of that, development is limited to a degree. Many of you have heard of me speaking of the 80-20 rule, or the situation where when a parcel of land within the 3-mile radius of the city of Topeka wants to be developed, the city limits us underneath their land use growth management plan to only develop 20% of that land. They do this to ensure that land is not densely populating within a small area outskirts of the city of Topeka. They do have ability to make changes to those rules. It is a rule. It's not a law. It's not an ordinance. It's part of their land use growth management. So they have some flexibility. And in speaking with them on this particular development, we did ask, or the applicant did ask, that they be able to rezone 11.5 acres versus the 7. This means that it's not going to fall within the 80-20 rule. It's actually going to fall under more like a 70-30. So he's being allowed to develop 30% of it instead of just 20. And the argument to that was the remaining parcel of that 35 acres is going to be over 20 acres. And so they don't mind because at least 20 acres are going to be left undeveloped, and only 11 would be developed as a part of this. The land has historically been used agriculturally, but it is not limited to ag use. You will hear a lot of public comment about the current use of it, the agricultural use of it, but I want to point out that just because it's ag land now does not mean that it's ag land, period. It is not limited to that. There are many things that could be developed on this parcel, other than a single-family house. Any use within the RR zone can currently exist on the property. Things that could currently be used on there are ag use, of course. You could have truck farms with roadside stands. You could put a group home. You could put a public park. You could put playgrounds. You could put in a subdivision. An elementary or secondary school, you could put in a residential care facility, and that's permitted by right. You don't have to come to us for a public hearing on that. A medical care facility could be used, a golf course, a religious assembly facility, and then other more intensive uses underneath a conditional use permit. So the current plan is for 13 duplexes. This would equate to 26 units. Each of the units would be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It is a rental facility that will be managed by a company. The applicant owner lives across the street from this facility. It is a private street that will be cared for and managed by a company. Landscaping and mowing will also be provided by a company. Construction will occur in phases whereby the street will be put in, the septic and lateral situation will be put in, and a few homes will start. And then once the first set of homes are started, then he'll move on to another set of homes and then a third set of homes. As a part of the master plan, there will be vegetation and screening that would be required. He's also required to have stormwater detention ponds to ensure that any runoff is properly collected. As mentioned, originally a wastewater lagoon was proposed. This was removed based on the objections of the community, and instead he is planning to utilize a modified lateral field per each duplex. I don't have all of the specific details of that, what that means, but applicant and other supporting people here could answer questions if there are specific questions about the lateral fields. Originally, there were 2 entrances on and off of Rochester Road, but he has limited that to 1. The site plan was increased from 7 acres to 11.5 acres, and a few of the homes were reduced, and this allows the houses to be spread out a little bit and not be so densely compacted in. And as mentioned, it will be under the 70-30 development, so 30% of the parcel will be developed and the other 70 will remain undeveloped. And 70% of it is not being rezoned. That will remain RR. The parcel no longer is going to run north to south along Rochester Road, but instead is now going to run east to west. So all of the homes are not going to be fronting Rochester. It will actually stretch to the west. Here's an insignia of the section that's going to be rezoned in red, and then the neighboring area around it. This was the map of the people within 1,000 feet of the parcel. We did send out letters to everybody that falls within 1,000 feet, and have heard from most of them. I included a copy of the final plat. This plat, as I mentioned, is happening concurrently with the city. If this gets approved today, then he'll go back to the city and he will finalize a plat. No development can happen until that plat happens. What you can see here is lot 1 is going to be the 22.5 acres that will remain undeveloped, and then lot 2 is going to be the 11.52 acres on the northeast corner there. This is a site plan showing where the houses are going to be. If you look on the, if you look up here, these are the houses along in here, 15 of them running along a street with a cul-de-sac. Then these squares down here are actually where the lateral fields belong. And then this area right here is where the stormwater drainage occurs. And you can see along Rochester Road, the single entrance, it's going to come in and then swoop up to the north and then along to the west. It was selected to do it that way based on site distances along Rochester Road to ensure the greatest amount of safety. Okay, so for the second public hearing in front of the Planning Commission, 36 letters were sent to property owners within 1,000 feet. We did receive a couple of additional phone calls and emails, although the majority of the information we received happened before the first public hearing. Planning Commission action, they did have another public hearing on November 4. 12 people spoke in opposition to the plan at that time. The applicant consultant and the rental management company that is going to manage this proposal spoke in favor. The Planning Commission did vote to recommend denial again with a vote of 3-2. And I will point out again that only 5 people were present that day. 1 was absent, and then 1 position was vacant. 1 commissioner expressed the contention with leach fields / septic systems within the county. That was his main reason for voting no. He had indicated that this project was needed and he supported the project, but he isn't a fan of leach fields and septic systems. And so that was his reason for voting no. Other planning commission members did not express exactly why they voted no. 3 of them voted in favor, though, I would point out. Actually, I take that back. 3 voted no, 2 voted in favor. We did receive protest petitions once again. 22 of them were received to the clerk. When that was calculated, it equates to 74.15% of the area within the 1,000 feet. That means that here in front of you today, if you were to approve the plan, that you would have to vote unanimously 3-0. Several issues were cited by the neighbors. That includes traffic. The traffic issues that were noted, however, were things like speeding, dangerous driving, wrecks. Those are not a increase in traffic issue, those are a traffic control issue. So frankly, if that's the problem, then that is a law enforcement issue that needs to be addressed with law enforcement, not by arguing that this would cause additional issues. Another thing that was brought up is that it doesn't match the area and the character of the neighborhood, but the question lies, what is the character of the neighborhood? While this particular parcel is agricultural in nature, as I mentioned, there are a lot of residential homes surrounding. There are subdivisions, there are big subdivisions, there are tiny subdivisions, there are 5-acre parcels, 3-acre parcels, 20-acre parcels, there are half-acre parcels. There is no specific character to this neighborhood other than it's a mix of a lot of different things. There are schools, not that far away, there are other multifamily homes. There is a social event center, there's a sporting complex, there's shopping straight down Rochester Road. So there's a lot of stuff in this area and reason why people want to live here and why multifamily, or a 2-family, not multifamily, but 2-family homes would be a good plan to have to expand the housing basis for Shawnee County. Again, an argument was that the history of the property is that it was agricultural use. They're used to seeing cows in open space. However, that's not what this parcel is restricted to. There's also been a mention of the concern about it becoming low-income, undocumented non-citizens living in these houses. And I want to point out that that is an inappropriate reason to approve or deny a project such as this. Who lives there is not what we're considering. We're considering the project as a whole. So what do you have to consider when looking at this? Your best bet is to look at the Golden factors. Golden is a Supreme Court case from the 70s, I believe, whereby Overland Park was involved in a court case, and it was determined that there are specific things that a planning commission, that a board of county commissioners would consider when they are having one of these public hearings. These are the things that if you look at these items and you consider them, whether one way or the other, it's been deemed that you've made a reasonable, non-arbitrary decision. You're not just basing it off of some random reason. You're looking at the specifics, and these are the characteristics that you should consider. The first is the character of the neighborhood, which I've already pointed out. The second is the zoning uses of nearby properties. In this regard, yes, the zoning would be changing slightly, but I will touch on the differences between RR and M1 zoning here in just a minute. The suitability of the property for the use to which it is restricted. I'm going to touch on that as well. And actually, the restrictions on RR1 zoning are less than if it were converted to M1. There are more restrictions added to it if it's M1 versus RR. The extent to which the change will detrimentally affect nearby property, I would say that this is probably where the neighbors are going to argue that it's going to detrimentally affect them. But the question is it really? Like, what is it really going to do to affect the neighbors? It's going to bring in additional housing. It's going to add value and property taxes. It's going to bring in a place for more people to live. But how is it detrimentally affecting them? And the arguments that they've brought up so far are not ones that are figuratively going to detrimentally affect them. The length of time that the property has been vacant as zoned, well, it has remained vacant as zoned in its entirety. It's used agriculturally, so that has been 100% all that it has been zoned as. Gain to the public health, safety, and welfare by the possible diminution of value of the developer's property. If he's prevented from being able to develop this, what else will he turn it into? And the question is we don't know. There's a number of things that he could utilize this for other than a single-family residential use. Recommendations of professional planning staff. My recommendation today, which I will get to in a little bit, is that it should be for approval. And then the conformance to the comprehensive plan, which it does also conform to the comprehensive plan as we have encouraged development and housing and expansion. And as it goes throughout Shawnee County, this is not atypical to the comprehensive plan. So the differences between RR1 and M1, really I want to point out just the first couple of uses. RR can be used agriculturally for things such as nurseries, greenhouses, orchards, sawmills, truck farms. It can also be used for single-family dwelling. Anything beyond that really is quite similar to M1. The M1 zoning can be used for a single-family dwelling or for a two-family dwelling. It can't be used agriculturally, so these 11 acres would not be able to be used agriculturally. It could no longer be used for nurseries, greenhouses, orchards, truck farms, etc. Now, I will point out that there are 30 uses that could be allowed under a conditional use permit in RR1, including a demolition landfill, a sanitary landfill, private airport, landing strip, an extraction processing company like a rock quarry, mining, dredging, stripping operations. None of those are allowed within the M1 zone. There are 14 uses allowed under a conditional use permit in M1, and none of them are the ones listed above. So while the neighbors are concerned about the increase of traffic into this neighborhood and the fact that it would be two-family homes instead of single-family homes, there are actually a lot of things that could happen on this property that will no longer be allowed because of this rezoning. So coming back to then my staff recommendations, based on the facts detailed in my report, all of which you have a copy of, I wrote 2 reports in this case before the first Planning Commission meeting and then prior to the second one. It details all of the various characters of the neighborhood, golden factors, why I believe that this is a supported project. But based on that, I recommend approval subject to the following conditions. Number 1, that the development should occur according to the master plan and the site development plan, as well as in addition to any conditions set forth herein within this meeting, as well as the Shawnee County permit procedures. So they have to follow the rules. Second is that they have to have a properly recorded final plat from the city of Topeka prior to any development. The county and other county departments do give input on that plat process, and we work quite closely with the city anytime there are plats going on. The applicant should dedicate additional controlled access, which means they will only be allowed the one entrance onto the property, and the rest of it will be controlled access. And then they will be allowed access to the parcel on the south. There is a drought well located on the property, and that has to be identified on the plat and or any master plans. Number 4, a Class A drainage report has been submitted, and then that report needs to be updated and revised based on development as it occurs and needs to be reviewed by the Public Works Department, and any recommendations or requirements of that drainage report have to be followed. I already mentioned the drought well that would have to be identified. One of the concerns from the fire district was that a fire hydrant needs to be placed at the end of the driveway or closer to the homes. Based on the distance of the drive, it will be difficult for them to get to the last home and put out a fire if that were to occur without this additional fire hydrant. So they will be required to make sure that that happens. And then last would be that vegetation, landscaping, and screening needs to be identified on the site development plan and submitted to my office for review and approval to ensure that it's not a grouping of houses on an open acreage with no other beautification. Other than that, I stand for any questions in regards to my presentation today.
Questions for the planning director? Commissioner Mays?
Joni, you mentioned the fire hydrant. How close is the existing fire hydrant? Is there one anywhere near there?
There is one, but it would not reach all the way to the end based on the length. And so there are fire hydrants that are there, but the fire department did specifically ask that a new one be placed at the end of this property. I don't know the exact distance without trying to pull up the comments from the fire department.
Okay.
Commissioner Rippon, question for the planning director?
Yes, I have a few questions. You mentioned that traffic study. Was that completed then?
There was a traffic study complete. The original traffic study was submitted to the Planning Commission for review. There were no recommendations for any changes to Rochester Road based on the traffic in and out of the property. I would notate that some of the concern that rose from that traffic study was that it specifically pointed out early morning traffic and then evening time traffic, but it didn't identify traffic that occurred between the times of 3 and 4 when the schools in the area release from school. And so after the Planning Commission meeting, I did ask that the applicant have that traffic study updated, and the engineering firm did provide an update with that traffic study between the hours of 3 and 4 and indicated that no changes would be recommended even with that additional consideration. And all of that is also a part of the packet that you have today.
The other thing you mentioned is this land, as it's zoned right now, you could build a subdivision in there?
You could build a subdivision on there. Now, I will point out that that is restricted, again, through the plating process with the city of Topeka. And so only 20% of it, maybe up to 30% of it could be developed. And so based on the location of this and the need for septic with single-family homes, or even in this situation, if we subdivided this particular project, there are specific setbacks from property lines when it comes to septic systems. And so likely we wouldn't be able to fit quite as many homes on the property if it were to be subdivided without providing for variances from those setbacks through the environmental health code process.
But that could happen.
It could potentially happen, yes, on a small portion of the property, just like we're considering today, not on the entire property.
Would that even require a hearing like this, or to do something like that?
It would not require a public hearing like this. It would just require going through the city plating process.
Okay.
Any other questions for the planning director? Before we open public hearing, we do need to address if there's been any ex parte communication. I will start that I have had a meeting with Mr. Palmer after the first presentation to the Board of County Commissioners, but before his presentation to the Planning Commission at the second time. I've had a couple of 3 emails from him as well. I've also received numerous emails from people, neighbors, and concerned citizens. I've tried to respond to most, if not all, that I've received their emails and have reviewed their concerns. Commissioner Rippon, any ex parte communication?
I also had a meeting, Mr. Palmer, and I've had numerous emails from people in the area, so almost the same.
Yeah, virtually the same. I had a meeting with him, with Mr. Palmer last week, along with Travis from RMS, and then also received numerous emails from folks in the neighborhood. I did have one further question, though. Joni, you know, we are planning to make improvements to Rochester Road in the next few years as part of our half-cent countywide sales tax plan. Was that taken into consideration when this is all planned out? The acquisition of right-of-way and things like that that are going to have to happen?
This doesn't get to, our project only goes to 50th, and this is at 56th. So
Yeah, I would,
okay.
yes, it doesn't quite go, the project does not go this far north.
Okay.
If we need to have Director Niehaus respond to
Okay.
that any further, but it doesn't quite go this far
All
north.
right, my
Yep.
mistake. Sorry
Yep.
about that.
It's close.
It is very close, and it will benefit this project as well, based on that expansion, but it doesn't hit their property lines.
Okay. Any other questions for the planning director? Any other ex parte communication? With that, then, I will make a motion to open the public hearing on this item. Is there a second to open public hearing?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? We are now show that it passes, we are now in a public hearing. The way that we conduct a public hearing is we would first hear from any applicants that are wanting to speak or any persons that are wanting to speak in favor of this item. This would be an opportunity to address the commission as well as to have any questions on this project. So when you come up, if you could state your name for the clerk so that it can properly be recorded.
Good morning, Joshua Blinsky with SBB Engineering. I'm representing Mr. Palmer as far as civil engineering is concerned. I think Joni did an excellent job on giving you the 30,000-foot picture of the project, and I just wanted to fill in a few of the gaps from beginning to end. I think it's important to show how far an applicant has gone to address comments that arose in the beginning, and to show how much he's willing to give to accommodate those comments. So I wanted to show the first proposal that we made. And can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay.
I might note that I've scooted back. It's not that I'm trying to get away from my commissioners.
Sure,
It's the sun
I
is
felt a
right
little
in my eyes.
rejected there. So this was the original proposal. So we had that U-shaped drive, and Joni was right, it was very densely collected up in that north section there, and the reason for that was we only had those 7 acres to work with according to the 20% rule. So we tried to fit everything, squeeze everything together as much as we could. This was the location of the lagoon, on which we had many comments in the first meeting. And then there were some stormwater ponds fit in as best we could around that lagoon. So after that meeting, we received numerous comments, and the first thing that Mr. Palmer said to me was, how are we going to address all of these comments? What do we have to do? Let's take care of it. Let's do that traffic study. Let's take care of every comment. So we went through every comment and tried to answer them as best we could in any way, and that's how we came up with our current plan. And I have to say, there's nothing that hasn't changed on this plan from the beginning in response to those comments. Actually, the only thing that hasn't changed is the actual size of the duplex itself, and maybe the width of the street. So the original location was restricted to this east half of the property. So like Joni said, we were more along Rochester Road, and then we changed everything to be in more east-west direction. And the reason for that was that the screening from the road for the residents on the other side, they wanted some more separation. So we originally had about 60 feet set back from the street, and now we have over 200 feet separation from the street. I think it should be noted that the houses on the other side of Rochester Road roughly fall in between 60 to 100 feet set back from the road. So we are more than twice the distance away as the existing buildings, especially the house to the north. That's about 100 feet away from the street. So we're twice as far away with proposed screening along the front of the street, which would screen view of all of the development from pretty far south along the road and definitely from across the street. So we reduced the number of houses. That was one of the comments. We were too densely clustered in that smaller area, so we reduced it by 2 units. We had about a 10-foot separation in between the multifamily units. We increased that to 30 and spread it further back towards the west. We removed, if you recall, the 2 entrances. We agreed that it could create some sight distance problems from the crest of the hill. So to take care of that, we moved it another 100 feet south and removed one of the entrances, took care of that issue, added the cul-de-sac at the end. One of the major, if not the biggest issue was that lagoon. So immediately we removed the lagoon and went with a proprietary system. It's advanced enviroseptic system. I have I don't know if you have any information on that. I have a handout here if you'd like to pass that around or see that now at any point.
If there are any handouts, we'll need to make sure that we have one for the record and we can have copies made with our administrative assistant if we need
Okay,
to.
I'll just give you a brief overview then. So the comment for those septic systems was that there are poor soils in the area, and there have been some failing systems based off of a general lateral field. So these are designed to increase infiltration and to avoid any of those maintenance issues for poor soils. So they use a sand bed, or like a sand mound and a classic system combined. Let's see, so we went with a single lateral field for each building instead of a combined system. That was to reduce any, if we had one single large system, we wouldn't be able to maintain them individually. So if there was a failure in a single system, we could rectify that quickly without cutting off sewer for the entire development. So this here is not a lagoon, this is just the stormwater pond that we pushed to the south. We would have liked to include this pond here, the existing feature, but we are required to keep the stormwater detention on our site within the 11 acres. So we have to create a new pond in that area. So with this, I just wanted to illustrate how much we've changed, how much we've taken each one of those comments and incorporated them in our design. The traffic studies, both of those to accommodate the traffic, even though there's nothing really that Mr. Palmer can do about speeding, accidents, and things like that. Let me look through the list here. There were some questions on unit price, maintenance, and things like that. I'll let one of our other speakers take care of those. I believe that's the majority of what I had to say. Were there any? We have several more speakers, so any questions particularly to me right now, or should we wait?
Any questions for this speaker?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Morning, guys.
Morning.
I'm Robert Palmer. And so there's currently 1,800 students, over 1,800 students at Seaman High School and Seaman Middle Schools. That's a potential of over 3,600 grandparents, and if you add great-grandparents in, it's probably over 5,000. And many of those whom would love to move out to Seaman High School District to live near their grandchildren. But the bottom line is, there's nowhere for them to go. Right now, there's 0 townhouses for senior, there's 0 senior townhouse facilities. There is currently 3 townhouse facilities in Seaman School District. All of them are rented out. There's waiting lists, no vacancies. Only one of them offers more than 2 bedrooms, and 0 are dedicated to seniors. The first one's Emery Lakes Luxury Apartments. It's at 4800 Northwest Fielding Place, right across from Petro Deli, the old North Rock. They only offer 2-bedroom, 1.5 baths. They were built in 2000, so they're almost 25 years old. They're not in the best shape. There's 30 units. They're all rented out, no waiting list. And they rent for $1,600. The second one is Northern Sky Townhouses, and that's right across from Seaman Middle School. They were built in 2008. There's 24 units, all rented out. I spoke with Marshall Barber the other day. He's the leasing officer. There's probably over a year-long waiting list. And those are, they only offer 2-bedroom, 2-bath, not for seniors at all. The third one, William Ma just built some new townhouses on North Topeka Boulevard and Mininger Road. And he does offer 3 and 4 bedrooms, and those rent out for $2,000 a month. And there's no vacancies. There's a waiting list.
My townhouses at the Palmer Plaza will be for seniors 55 and older. They're going to be maintenance-free. They're going to cost me $385,000 to build, but they're going to be appraised at $500,000. Houses appraised at $500,000 in this area bring over $6,000 in property taxes. $6,000 in property taxes times 13 townhouses, that's approximately $80,000 in property taxes a year, and that's only going up. In 13 years, that'll be over $1 million in property taxes, going to fund the new fire department on North Topeka Boulevard, going to fund the police, going to fix all these potholes out here. And I've been in real estate for 17 years, and I still can't believe I got that land. It's the most sought-after area there is Seaman High School. So those property taxes are only going up. In 20 years from now, every 10 years, it's probably going to be $2 million in property taxes. So at $385,000 to build one, times that by 13, that's over $5 million going to the local construction companies I've hired, which I've given you guys the list of that, from Apple Hands Roofing, Carlson Plumbing, down to McRae Lumber, and that's going to be over the next 2.5 years is how long it'll take me to build them, depending on how bad the winters are. And most likely, they're going to spend that money right here in Topeka. Now, my neighbors don't want me to rent out to Section 8. I don't want to rent to Section 8. I'm not going to rent to Section 8. And in Topeka, it's the law that I don't have to rent to Section 8. Travis with RMS, who I've hired to be the property manager, will speak to that point as well. And I spoke with Topeka Housing Authority, Section 8, and as of 2024, the most they'll pay for a 3-bedroom is $1,477. The numbers won't work for me. I couldn't rent that low. Now, one concern my neighbors have is that I'm going to build all 13 townhouses and that I won't be able to rent them out. They're going to sit vacant, and now I'm going to be forced to rent to Section 8. And let me tell you why that's impossible. Now, I'm going to rent mine for $2,500, right? But if need be, I could come down to $1,700, and those numbers will still work for me and my bank. Now, I couldn't go any lower than that, but my bank's not giving me $5 million and saying, hey, Robert, go build 13, and we'll see what happens, right? We're starting with the entryway, like Joni said, and 2 townhouses. Now, let's say I get those 2 built and something crazy happens, and I just can't rent those out for at least $1,700, and I was wrong, and it just didn't work. Well, my bank's not going to loan me more money to keep building. But the bottom line is the comps show that that's not going to happen. Emery Lake Apartments, the first comp I talked about, they all have waiting lists, and it's got 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bath, and they're renting it for $1,600. And like I said, they're in rough shape. They're not all rented out with waiting lists because they're the creme de la creme. It's because we have no housing up north. Again, I've been in real estate for 17 years. People don't even look up north for townhouses. It just doesn't exist. So a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, brand new house, I'm not going to have any trouble renting it out for at least $1,700. And I'm highly confident that I'm going to have a waiting list at $2,500. Just like all 3 others have a waiting list right now. And again, they're nothing fancy. William Malls is brand new. But we don't have the housing. We need more housing. Now, one thing I want to point out on the PUD. Let's see. Okay, so there's Rochester. Here's the PUD. This land right here, about 3 more acres, I'm going to turn into the Palmer Plaza Park. It'll be mowed, maintained. There's going to be a walking trail around it, probably another additional 3 acres. That's not part of the PUD I'm trying to get approved today, but it will always be a part of the Palmer Plaza facility. And it's going to be a great attraction, a big allure to the seniors to get them to come there. It's going to be a dog park. Again, it's got a stock fishing pond in the corner they can fish on. They can have their grandkids over. They can mingle with the other seniors. This is a picture taken of where the townhouses are going to be built, looking south towards Seaman High School. All mowed, It's gonna be maintained like that, flowers, like she said, vegetation and stuff like that. But it's gonna, it's not part of the PUD, but it will always be a park like that, which the neighbors will like as well. So I've lived across the street for 14 years. I graduated from Seaman High School. My parents were high school sweethearts at Seaman High School. I'm never leaving North Topeka. I'm never selling these. This is my dream. I'm still pinching myself that I own the land. It's gonna be well-built, it's gonna be high class, and it's gonna be gorgeous. And the project's gonna bring millions of dollars to the community. It's gonna bring millions of dollars in property taxes. And seniors are the best neighbors there are. They hardly ever leave their homes, and when they do, they're out spending their money on local businesses. And the bottom line is, we desperately need more housing, and we're ready to build it. And with that, you guys have any questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Palmer? All right, thank you. As you're coming up, I'm going to forewarn those in the audience that aren't prepared at 10 o'clock, and we have a county code that says at the hour we stand. It's for better health. You're supposed to stand for, so at 10 o'clock, we're going to stand for a minute. Don't be alarmed. We're not leaving. It's just, you'll stand for a couple minutes and be able to get some circulation. Well, except for Miss Beck. So,
We'll get set.
yeah,
Can't.
go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Travis Marth. I'm the owner and operator of Rental Management Solutions. We manage about 1,200 units of mostly single-family homes. We do have a few smaller multifamily as well in Shawnee County. We are running occupancy of 96+% and have been since COVID, showing a huge demand for rental property. And that stretches from low-income affordable housing all the way to the top. We have properties that rent over $3,000 a month, which surprises me, but there's a market out there for it. Majority of our wait lists, and we do have wait lists, are for the outlying schools. Auburn, Washburn, Seaman, and Shawnee Heights. We get calls year-round for availability, and we're typically telling them, sorry, we don't have anything available, but we'll put you on the list. And then it sits. There was is a decent-sized development in the 3600 block of Croco that was built a few years ago, 55 and older, and it has done absolutely amazing. The residents are great there. It's a great community. They're well-built. Didn't have, to my knowledge, any negative impact whatsoever, and we could fill another 75 to 100 units across the street if someone would give up the land at Shawnee Lake. There's no place to build out there. So, and we have, for the school districts, we have more demand in the last 3 or 4 years in Seaman than we have in Shawnee Heights and Auburn, Washburn. 10 years ago, I've ran RMS for 20 years now, and Auburn, Washburn used to be the leader of the 3 outside schools, and Seaman has taken over that position by far. To address some of the misconceptions, traffic issues, most of you probably or should know, 55 and older aren't leaving at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. to go race to the office. They usually don't leave their home until after all the busy traffic from schools and workload, so they don't contribute to the morning traffic. And they're usually home before 6 o'clock after they've ate lunch at Applebee's at the early 4 o'clock discount meals. So they don't contribute to the traffic at the 5 o'clock hour, and they're typically not part of the speeders, although I'm not law enforcement, maybe someone from the sheriff's office to comment on that. They're typically not in the problems that traffic counts were showing for speeding and accidents. The easy way to put people's mind at ease on the applications or the people that are going to live there is these residents are going to have to qualify. We run a 4-stage qualifying criteria: credit, criminal, rental history, and income. The income has to be 3 times the amount of the rent. So if we're renting for $2,500, these are people that are going to make $7,500 a month in rent. And for those that say there's no such thing, We've got 36 units out on Croco that show otherwise, with waiting lists. They're out there. Even if we have to go down to the 2,000 mark, we're still at 6,000 a month in income. So they're quality residents. They're not low income that are dependent on housing authority or any other agency to survive. The Section 8 is, like RC said, it's off the table. We can easily advertise no Section 8. We can easily advertise 55 and older. It's a misconception that that's discrimination. It's not. We've done it, and we can do it, and we can continue to do it. Other than that, I've had some opposition about illegal immigrants. They don't pass our screening criteria, so they don't usually even apply. We do have about a 45% application approval rate company-wide, with once you get over about the 1,500 mark in rent, it goes up to 75–80% because they're good qualified renters. And then the maintenance on the property. I've got 12 full-time maintenance technicians. We run about a 2-hour emergency response. So if RC living across the street's unavailable to make a quick repair, I've got the staff to do it. We take care of almost everything in-house. We have emergency maintenance. The property's not going to, once it's built, be left alone. We have to maintain it in order to continue to verify or to qualify the rents. If we don't maintain it, they're not going to pay that kind of rent, and they'll leave. And nobody makes money if it's vacant. So we're going to maintain the property, keep the residents happy, and they stay. We've proven that the elderly community, and I'm almost 50. I hate saying elderly there because I'm about to qualify into that, but they just don't move. Once they find a place after they're retired or onto that phase of life, they don't move. So we'll end up with waiting lists of long-term residents that will become part of the community. They'll get to know each other, but they'll also get to know the rest of the neighborhood there. They'll go to the sporting events at the high school and watch grandkids and other kids. So I'm well in favor of this project. Our housing demand is just unbelievable right now. We've never had this problem. COVID changed something, and we have vacancy in rare opportunities over 1,000 a month, and it usually rents within a week. Properties in the 700-800 or lower, studio apartment stuff, those take a little bit longer to rent, but they're still rented within 30 days. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's a little slow, but my lease agents still aren't in the office. They're out showing still. So we need housing. We need it everywhere, but we really need it in the outlying school districts. So,
Questions? Thank you. Any other individuals wanting to speak in favor of this application? Those wanting to speak in opposition?
And Commissioner, before we start that, I'd like to point out that our 4-minute rule per public speaker will start now. If anyone wants to know why they only get 4 minutes and the applicant gets more than that, oftentimes the presentation can't be done in 4 minutes, and then we obviously have lots of questions. But just as ways of example, they've gone for about 40 minutes, and if 12 of you get up speak and you each have 4 minutes, you'll have 48 minutes. So that's the balance in the situation, but I do want to let everybody know that a 4-minute time limit will apply.
It won't start till...
We have a helpful timer.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Matt Armfield. I live just south of the subdivision proposed. So basically here we are back again. Everyone is speaking obviously for everyone, because not everyone could be here due to medical things, and my wife's couldn't for that reason. So twice the Shawnee County Planning Commission has recommended this to not go through. Community submitted over 250 petitions against it. The neighbors within 1,000 feet, and this is kind of a color-coded of everyone that signed. Mr. Palmer owns this and one of these properties, and the other ones that didn't sign were because they couldn't fit into the classification because they're going through a divorce and the two sides didn't speak or whatever. I'm opposed for 6 main reasons, and I emailed you all more detail. Obviously, I don't have time to go through all the details, so hopefully you've read it all. But my main 6 reasons are, first, the overwhelming community opposition. Second, it's designed to only be corporate-owned. Third, the math doesn't work, which they've been talking about modifying the math. Fourth, it doesn't follow the 80-20 rule, which it's now 50% larger than the first proposal. Fifth, it doesn't follow the golden rules, which I won't have time to get into, but in my email, I addressed 5 of the golden rules that, in my opinion, it doesn't fit. And respectfully to Ms. Madani's comments, I never had time. The last hearing at the planning, I had 2 minutes to talk, so you can't talk about things like that. You can just say what I basically said already, and you're out of time. And fifth is, or 6 is the highly substandard traffic study, which apparently maybe was modified a little bit, but we haven't, the public hasn't seen it. So high level, like Mr. Palmer sent a letter and invited everyone to come over and talk or meet with us. So my wife called, invited him to the home. He refused to come. My wife asked him to sign a document to say it will only be for 55 and over, and he refused to do so. He said he doesn't have to. He'll rent it to whoever he needs to. He'll try to do, he said he'll try to do 55 and over, but he won't sign anything. And that would be appreciated, I think, if this had to go through. On the corporate-owned issue, when I say it's designed to be corporate-owned, Northern Sky, which this is supposedly initially started out as modeled after, it's owned by an outfit in the state of Washington. It's got, if you drive in there, there's siding coming off. It may be fully rented, but there's problems with the lateral fields, as I think have been publicly stated. If you look at the proposed subdivision, there's no way it could ever be split up. All the units, and then the laterals are winding through and overlapping, so a person could never carve it out. So if he ever sells it, it's going to be corporate owned, which I personally have a problem with, because I think privately owned, I mean, is going to be treated better. But like Northern Sky, I don't know at which point it became owned by someone in the state of Washington, but its maintenance is obviously now suffering from that. So the math, you know, I kind of talked about, but, you know, while Section 8 won't pay for it, and I could be wrong, but as I understand, it can be subsidized by Section 8 as necessary, and I could be wrong on that.
Okay. I'll note that you're out of time, so.
Perfect.
Thank
Please
you.
read my email.
Yes.
In full. Thank you.
Thank
Can I
you.
ask a question for
No,
them?
no, question.
I have
Yes,
a
sir.
question. You said that the project increased by 50%?
The land size, it was originally 7 acres, it's now 11 point something. So
Okay.
the proposed development, it first fit the 80-20 rule, which Ms. Fedani talked about, and now it's grown to 11.5 acres.
And then it was approved by the city planning
Okay,
for
well, that's
70-30.
Not quite 50% then. That's,
No,
No.
very close.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Quick before I start, could we get 48 minutes if we haven't used all those up, or do we only get, will I only get my 4 minutes? Is that fair to ask?
4 minutes per speaker.
Okay. My name is Mike Drolmus. I've been a general contractor in Shawnee County for the last 32 years and live at 5423 Northwest Rochester Road. I'm opposed against the zoning changes. I spoke with Mr. Palmer on the telephone on October 24th at 6:58 p.m. When I spoke with him, he let me know how nice the duplexes would be and how they would be like the ones at Southeast 35th and Croco by Lake Shawnee, and those ones by Hunter's Ridge, the area at Northwest 46th Street and North Highway 75. it's interesting that these two things, these two areas that they have in common, that's not in common with, excuse me, it's interesting these two things that these areas have in common that Mr. Palmer mentioned. It's that they have municipal services. City sewer, the proper infrastructure is in place, not a 2-lane county road. They actually have 4 lanes, nice turning lanes, shoulders, and the roads are well lit. Areas like these that Mr. Palmer cited are far more fitting location than the proposed location. Another concern I have is the only inspection will be just the sewer system, septic system. I've confirmed this with county planning and the city planner, and there's no building inspections. The contractor or developer will sign an affidavit stating that he'll build to the current code. So basically, on his word and on his signature, he'll follow the plans and procedures put forth, which means no soil compaction test, no footing depth inspection, no plumbing inspection, no heating inspection, no electrical, and probably my biggest concern, no fire suppression inspections. Again, when I spoke with Mr. Palmer on the phone, I asked him if he had ever overseen or developed anything like this, and his answer was no. I also asked him if his general contractor had built a multifamily units like this, and his answer was no. In his rebuttal, he'll let you know that he's flipped over 200 homes, and his general contractor has built many homes. While there are many similarities between single family and multifamily, there are many more requirements for multifamily houses that adjoin one another. In addition, I've scaled the plans for the project with my architect scale, and using the front door as a guide, they're mostly 36 inches. I'm able to tell that there's no bathroom, the bathrooms are not ADA compliant. If these units are intended to be for seniors, they should be ADA compliant, and it should be included on the plans. Again, when I spoke with Mr. Palmer and asked him if he'd be willing to sign an affidavit or any type of official document stating he would only rent to 55 and older seniors, his response is no, he would not. Renting to 55-year-old seniors, as he suggested in his letter, is nothing but a suggestion. He'll rent to whoever has the first $2,500. For the following reasons, I ask you to maintain the current zoning regulations. Lack of city building inspections, no ADA compliance, the lack of municipal services, the fact that there's a better location for this type of development, and the owner and developer have not built this type of project before. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Janine Falley, and I live within 1,000 feet of the project. For the sake of time, I won't go over what my neighbor has gone over, but there was some bullet points that I did want to cover. And I still have the same concerns as what I've written you initially and all through this process. So we're trying to use our due process because we were thrown into this. I think a lot of this could have been avoided. For myself, if I'm going to spend the amount of money that Mr. Palmer did, I would do a check with the neighbors ahead of time, and we were all notified by a packet that anything had happened. Some of our neighbors were involved with the sale and actually tried to make the purchase, and it just didn't work out. But if you have ideas of what you're going to do with this amount of property, to check with the neighborhood to see if it would be supported by your neighbors, I think that would have been something minimal to do, and it would have been good business for him instead of finding out all this opposition after the fact. So I know that there's money involved. There's always money involved, either for him as an owner or how many owners are involved, or as a county for revenue. But there's other places, there's better places to seek this revenue and to look at the good of the whole, to the number of people that are in opposition to this, my neighbors, myself, and to look at that versus the money or to benefit the one person. Sure, there could be people benefit from this. $2,500 is not affordable housing, especially with no services. I am personally involved with one of the developers that Mr. Palmer had mentioned. I know that there's going to be numerous units that are going to be coming available in our community, and the amount of rent that I was told doesn't match, doesn't come close to the $2,500. And the fact that if it's not in writing, if it is not in writing, it cannot be enforceable. And that's happening on purpose. The 55 and up, you will find nothing but word service. And so it's going to be who's ever going to pay whatever amount. So hopefully the finance department behind that will see if this is supported, if this does pass, then so be it. I know that there is a need for affordable housing, but our neighborhood is not the location for that. So I hope you will consider denying this project.
I do have a question for you. Is the concern that it could be rented out to anybody or any other individuals, or is it that you want to have that 55 and older in writing? What specifically is your concern that you want the commissioners to be focused on for this?
For myself, because my house overlooks the property, I snapped a picture and I didn't bring it in a nice poster board, but it's the aesthetics of the community, it's the farming, it's the farmland, it is just, I realize that there could be single family dwellings that can go on there now, yes, and it's supporting the nature of being out in the county, which is to enjoy the space. And so for me, it just would be a travesty to start looking to the north and no longer seeing the cattle and the land and my neighbor whose house is this size to me, to see all the other units that are being built. And then the noise and the construction and the amount of the 2.5 years that we're going to be listening and looking at this project. Preservation as intended for the original owner, to keep it as it is, and that's all we ask for our community.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Fowley? All right. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Monique King Gibbs. I live on 5346 Northwest Rochester. I've been there for 34 years. To this day, R&R zoning requirements have been adhered to by prior properties all along Rochester Road. Today, the R&R zoning history is still evident on Rochester Road of single dwellings from Highway 24 north to the recently constructed privately owned single dwellings on 94th Street. So we have this issue of someone coming in wanting to make a profit on all these prior people who have built in this area. The traffic study prepared by Priority Engineering of Garden City, Missouri is misrepresenting the traffic flow on Rochester Road. It is dangerous and deadly curve hill. First, it only consisted of intersection stops. Second, it did not include traffic flow from Rochester to the 62nd Street. Third, 55-year-olds who will be maybe living in these residentials will also have children. This will increase maybe vehicles in that area. Northern Hills homeowners from Rochester are living on a 3-mile city zone, but we do not have the amenities, again, repeating what was priorly said, of city, sewer, water, busing, fire hydrants. So we also do not have the city building codes, licensing, and current and future inspections for residential buildings. As responsible homeowners, we build and continue to keep our living family homes safe, regardless of the codes. We enjoy our natural environments of deer, groundhogs, all of those different things because we have open space. Placing residential managed by company on Rochester Road without the city building codes, licensing, and current inspections for future inspections will not be improvement to our neighborhood. Thank you. Appreciate your concerns.
Any questions? All right. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jackie Nelson. I live directly across the street from the property that is asking for the rezone. I get the quiver in my voice. It's very emotional. Mr. Palmer, I've never met Mr. Palmer. I am 3 doors to his north. He was advised when he moved to the neighborhood, these are the people who you need to meet. You can count on, our neighborhood looks after each other. My dad built the property, on the property to the south of me, 5544, in 1954. We were some of the first roots that started that neighborhood. The neighbors to the south of that, I grew up with, and I know this is all irrelevant to what is to come. Things move forward. Joni mentioned there was no feel for the, as far as the neighborhood. You get this, a little bit of mix of all kinds. It is home. Each one of us, the Lannings, I know the ones with the new homes, they bought under Mr. Levering's sale as being, it was always to be our R1 residential buildings, single home families. I knew the original Mr. Levering. I used to go with my daddy up to the farmhouse. His dreams of having it all, as he sold it off, it was to be our R1 single family dwellings. It continued on. Bud Levering, his son, after the original passed, he continued. He sold properties to these people, and they were to continue as RR1. It was in writing. Now, it breaks my heart because 2 doors to my north, my aunt and uncle owned property. And this brother that was so greedy for money he sold it out from under a brother that wanted to keep the family home in his name and live there and continue to keep it. And he sold it outright from him for more money, and it dwindled. It became trash, as we all know, and it has been purchased by a new neighbor who bought land to the north of that. They salvaged it. It is a nice piece of ground now. We are not fancy people, but 5548 is my home stomping grounds. I have clients who, numerous ones I have known through the years. We had over 250 petitions signed opposing this, and it ranges from anywhere from just out of high school, college-age students who opposed it, as well as my seniors who are almost 100. So covering that, I ask that you listen to your community. Mr. Palmer acquired the property was because the original Levering chose to undersell from his brother. His brother asked for the property and wanted to keep it in the family, and it went to auction. Now, that has nothing to do with Palmer's position. I realize that. He bought it fair and square, and I understand that, Robert. I do. I fully do. But listen to your community and all your neighbors that live here. My time's up?
Nope, just speak to us, please.
Okay. The time as far as being fair and square, I understand that. I've seen what happened when a family outsold from a brother, what has happened to a property. I would hope that would not happen over here, but who's to say? Who is to say? You can't regain the grounds for the farming. Biggs have cattle, and it's been wonderful to see the cattle back again. It really has. Just listen, takes more than one person to re-elect you into office. And I know several of you were back up. And I want you to know there were a lot of us who supported that particularly Cook. And so I would hate to think that being bought out on a decision when you could just listen, please listen to the community. I have probably used my time.
You have.
My heartstrings pull. Just listen to the community.
Right. Thank you.
Please. Sorry. It's emotional.
My name is Linda Lanning. I live at 736 Northwest Page Lane, have lived there for 58 years. I knew Jackie's parents. Like she said, We are a community. I have never seen Mr. Palmer until the second planning commission meeting. I have lived there that long, and he has been there, what, 14 years? I'm opposed to this.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals wanting to speak in opposition?
My name's Michelle Gromas. My husband was up here earlier. When it comes down to it, this property is not the perfect spot for this. I'm just trying to reiterate a little bit of what they said. We have to consider the RR1 says it can move forward. It's supposed to be opening, to urban and whatever in the future when there are municipal services like the septics. This septic system is all going to be on one side south of the property. The lateral lines are going to, appears on the plan to go under the road and then be on the south side that is going to, as one of the committee members from the planning department said, a leach field. I just don't feel that this is the correct property. Yes, we do need housing according to the county and these people that spoke, but this particular property does not have shoulders on the road. We do not have the, like he has to put in a fire hydrant. We just don't. I just want you to remember that there are certain services that are not there that should be there for this type of property to be built. And to consider that and deny this, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals wanting to speak in opposition? Okay. Well, commissioners, are there any additional questions you might have of the planning director before we would close the public hearing?
I do.
We can still talk to her outside of the public hearing, can't we?
Mr. Eckert, after we close the public hearing, we would still be able to talk to the planning director?
You can, yes, that's a fact.
Yeah.
So I'd make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second. There's been a motion made by Commissioner Mays to close the public hearing, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Okay. Now, Commissioner
I have
Wong,
some
you have a question
questions.
for the planning director.
The people that live around there, are they all, most of them using lateral fields? Is that what they use for their
Either lateral fields or lagoons, yes.
lagoons? Okay. With the current zoning, you could have cattle on this site, right?
Correct.
Wouldn't have to ask anybody to do anything. You could
No.
just put a fence up.
Correct.
You could have horses,
Correct.
pigs,
Yes.
any of those things. And you could build a subdivision.
Correct.
What other uses could you use this site for?
Well, without
If you go back
having
to
a
your-
public hearing,
If you go back to your slide, I
Yep.
think that you've got the
I'm gonna try
listed.
and-
Yeah, I'd like to see that again.
we're having it pulled up right now. Okay, so right now, any use that could be used as is, there are actually quite a few uses. There's a whole slew of items that could be done. It can be agricultural, things associated with agricultural, like truck farms, Christmas tree farms, pumpkin patches, those types of things with roadside stands. You can have a group home. You can have public parks, playgrounds, subdivisions, elementary and secondary schools, residential care facilities, medical care facilities, golf course, religious, and then items with conditional use permits.
So a lot of things could happen on this site. And I know the neighbors would like for it to stay pristine the way it is, pasture. But the truth is, it could be a number of different things in the future.
Correct.
And nothing you can do about it. I mean, you live in the country. Things can change. I understand wanting to keep everything the same, but I don't know. And I understand you want to control what goes on around you, and I understand that. But I just want to let you know too, things can change. So.
Other questions for the planning director? Commissioner
Yeah.
Mays?
So, a couple of the things that were brought up, I just wanted some clarification on. So the 55 plus, is that in writing somewhere? Is that something that should be a condition of this PUD?
It is not a part of the PUD. We are not limiting it to 55 plus. That is the proposal of the applicant in terms of his business operations. I personally do not believe that we should put an age limitation on it for purposes of rezoning. I believe that we could run into legal issues if we specifically limited it to 55 and plus. I also would like to point out that in my own personal and professional opinion, that if we limit it to 55 plus, we are limiting the number of people who could rent there. There are plenty of people who could rent there that can pay what he's asking that do not fall within the 55 and plus, but also to the tune that 55 and plus is not elderly. There's been a whole lot of talk about this being elderly.
I agree with that.
I'm not far off from, I mean, I'm a little ways off from 55 plus, but I would hope that most of us realize that 55 plus is not elderly. But the professional opinion, and when I discussed this, even with legal, I felt like this was not appropriate for our board to limit it to that age. If he would like his business plan to operate as such, then I think that that seems logical. I don't know that there's case law out there that discusses whether or not we have that ability. I just personally, as an attorney, I don't feel comfortable putting that limitation on.
Okay. Another was mention of ADA compliance. So I know that there have been other multifamily units built in Topeka on the southeast side of town that were ADA compliant. Is that, and I know they were in Topeka though, so you probably didn't see it. She did, I'm guessing. But
I honestly, none of the units that I'm aware of that come out of my office have been ADA compliant. I will mention that it's very, very rare that we see housing building plans coming in that are ADA compliant. Very rare. I don't know that we ever approve. But honestly, my office, when we do our building plans, we're not measuring door width to see whether or not they're ADA compliant or not. And again, we're looking at 55 plus. It doesn't mean disabled or ADA is a requirement.
right, it's not assisted living.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's not a facility. If we do have facilities such as, Aldersgate or some of those, they may have the requirements to fall under the ADA compliance. And so in those single family homes or condos, et cetera, they may have the ADA requirements fall under them, but this is not one of those.
I would like to remind the commission and the audience that today we're talking about land use. This is a land use decision, and inevitably in all these hearings, there's always discussion of things that fall outside of that, and that's fine. It's one of the many things that we can consider, but at the end of the day, it's a land use issue.
Right, so just to kind of clarify what I'm understanding is we don't take into consideration the business model. Is that the success or failure of his business or the use of the buildings, his business plan doesn't really come into consideration here. Is that what you're saying?
It's my interpretation of the golden rules correct. It would be like if someone wanted to put a Wendy's in and you said, no, thank you, we have a McDonald's. The business decision, the business model isn't a zoning decision. Although I have heard a couple of planners nationwide say the opposite, so there is a thought that way, but that's not how I interpret Kansas law.
Things that we do consider under plans of operations or business have to do with hours, like, say for instance, a wedding event venue or other types of social things where people are coming and going, we look at noise, we look at the hours of operations, coming and going, things that are going to affect the neighbors, whether or not there's an ADA compliant door or whether or not the person living there is 55 or 14 doesn't affect the neighbors. So we look at, as Mr. Eckert indicated, the land use issues and the comparisons of the pros and cons between multiple pieces of property, not necessarily the very intimate specifics of a business plan.
Okay.
Joni, I want to kind of go back. You were asked about what a lot of the neighbors have, and you mentioned lagoon. There's a development that has a lagoon that's within a 5-mile radius of this site. If you pull up your map.
I'm going to actually pull up the appraiser GIS map if you give me just a second. I heard murmurings in the room when I said that there are laterals and lagoons. People do have private lagoons on their properties. They're obviously not large in the effect that they're only operating a single family home, but there are lagoons, there are septic systems. There are bigger commercial version lagoons in the area as well. Here's one right here. This operates the schools, so those are lagoons right there. The county actually operates a sewer system that operates off of a lagoon. And it's not this one here, is it?
Sewer districts 2 and 6 is what
Yeah, sewer districts 2 and 6, and they're not that far off here as well. And they operate off of lagoons. Here, this one right here. This is a county sewer district, but the way that sewer district works is it operates off of lagoons. These are lagoons. Going back over so here's where the project is, right here.
Can you zoom in on that, please?
Yep, I'm going to point with my little pointer first. Oh, again, wrong thing, buttons. So this right here is where the project is.
No, it's north of.
North of that, sorry.
Because we're north of Cedar.
Right there.
Yeah, right there.
Up and in here. So there are other lagoon systems that operate within the area. If you scroll out, you can see there's,
But we're not.
down here.
But in this case,
here.
we're not.
We are not looking at a lagoon anymore. That was taken off of the table, and we are specifically looking at
Lateral.
the laterals. Yep.
It's to the right, next row to the right, Joe.
That's Topeka Boulevard. Okay. Where I was at was correct. It's this property right here. So this property right here. And immediately east, there's the school with the lagoons. If you come down here where the other school is, there's lagoons. But again, we're not looking at lagoons. But this is the neighborhood that we're looking at. Subdivision. I pointed out at one of the planning commission meetings, and it was attempted to be rebutted, but there are subdivisions here that are platted and undeveloped at this time. One of those is owned by Drip A Development. And, I don't know whether he's planning to move forward with developing this particular parcel right here, but he owns all of this, and at any point in time, he could develop that. The Biggs, who had appeared in opposition, own this land up here, which is also subdivided. They've indicated that they're not moving forward with a subdivision, but it is platted and subdivided and could be moved forward at any point in time.
Those are all approved and those
Platted already, yep.
Signed, sealed, delivered.
Yep.
And then to the north also.
And then up in here, there's subdivision parcels obviously all of these subdivisions that are already in existence. And, as I mentioned, when you look at the character of the neighborhood, if you were out there and everything surrounding was farm ground, and right in the middle I was asking you to consider the approval of two-family homes, it would not look correct. And I've had people come to me and want to put multifamily or two-family homes in the middle of the country where everything surrounding it is ag land. And I have discouraged them from doing so because it doesn't fit with the character of the neighborhood. This character of the neighborhood is not so unilateral that you're looking at one single parcel or the parcels immediately across the street. You're looking at the area as a whole. And also, when we look at the comprehensive plan, you're looking at how Shawnee County as a whole moves forward with development and where we place things. And as a whole, Shawnee County, the way we do development is not the same that Douglas County does development. It's not the same that Jefferson County. We're very different in how we move forward, and as a whole, we are quite urban in our development plans and how we move forward. So yes, we do have a lot of farm ground right here where they're looking, but a lot of it has already been platted into a subdivision that just hasn't been developed yet. When the Leverings had this land originally, the Leverings are the ones that divided this land up into these smaller parcels. So clearly there was some intent at some point that they were going to sell off smaller parcels for single-family residential. We're not subject to whatever their agreements are or whatever it was that they sold it or planned. If there are deed restrictions on the land that prevent him from building out somehow, we're not a party to that. Those deed restrictions would be limited to him alone. I'm not aware of any specific deed restrictions. Someone mentioned that those restrictions were in writing, but I've never seen or heard of them prior.
Joni, on the building itself, and I know we're asking you to kind of bounce around a little bit, but if you could go back to your presentation.
Mm-hmm.
If you can go to the map of the project.
Sure.
Right here. With the way that it is set up and with the restrictions of the city of Topeka long-range planning, as long as there is this 3-mile extraterritorial jurisdiction, this is as big as it's going to get.
Correct. Now, I caveat everything that I say and do when I come up here and propose something, that if the city changes their rules, then, that could be. But as of right now, the way their land use growth management plan is set forth, this is the most that he could develop. The other parcel is 20 plus acres. The most he could put on that would be one single family home. He cannot develop that. Now, I'm not going to be false in saying that rules change. I say this all the time. Rules can change and things could come back in 5 years, 10 years, and it could be different. But as of right now, this is the maximum of what he could do.
But as pointed out, with the way that the laterals are set up, he's not going to be able to come in and subdivide this into a subdivision.
No.
And he can't take the remaining land and now subdivide that into a housing development because it's part of his plat for these houses. So by doing it this way, he's limiting himself to just these houses. He can't subdivide it, he can't grow it, as the rules are today.
As the rules are today, yeah. He could, plats also can be replatted, and I'm not trying to counter-argue anything here other than pointing out that I don't want someone in 15 years to come back and say, well, they said that he couldn't do it, and he is. The way that the plat is now, with the single lot that's the 20 plus acres, the rules do not allow him to divide that down any further. If the city rules change, or if the 3-mile radius were to change, and he wanted to come in and subdivide that, he would have to replat that, which would equate to additional public hearings.
I guess my point was just, by going the route that Mr. Palmer has designed this, he's looking at this being the maximum. He would have been able to add a lot more houses to it by doing a subdivision.
Correct.
So if he was wanting to maximize the number of houses he could stick into the parcel of land, a subdivision would have been the way to go.
Subject to the city's development rules, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Just kind of, but as
Yeah.
it is, with the rules, and again, with the caveat, as the rules are today, this is as big as this project can get.
Correct.
And he could do that subdivision under current zoning.
He could do a subdivision under current zoning. It would have to comply with the plat rules of the city. So how many houses and how big those parcels would have to be. And the road would not be able to be a private road. It would have to be a publicly maintained road, which means having to dedicate that road to the public and then asking Soldier Township to take over maintenance of that road versus it being within this PUD where it's private.
And that's something that we would see similar to Sterling Chase.
Correct.
All right. Other questions?
No.
Okay.
Nothing I can think of for Joni, at least.
Pleasure of the commission at this time.
So, if I may, so I'll make a couple of just comments. You know, I look at the map here, and just in the one photo, I'm counting like 13 driveways on Rochester Road. This adds one driveway. So when we think of the traffic, I'm not really very concerned about any additional traffic, just because I think it's the access points to Rochester Road, which are typically the things that would concern me. I think that when you look at the original plan versus this modified plan, I think that there were a lot of concerns brought forth with the original plan. Number one was the number of houses, and he addressed that by reducing the number of houses. The lagoon was an issue, and he got rid of the lagoon. The entrances to the road were a concern, and he moved the entrance further down so it wouldn't be affected by the hill, and eliminated one entrance. The look of the development from the roadway was an issue, so they increased the setback from the road. It's a lot further from the road than it was, and they added the additional screening with the trees. I think that a lot of accommodations have been made. There's a drainage pond, which is not their first choice of location, but that's what they're going to do because that's what's required. I think that there's been a lot of accommodations made. I would say also the units that were mentioned on Croco Road are in my district. I went door to door there, very nice. The folks that live there seem all very happy with their accommodations. I've got other similar arrangements in my district as well. 45th in California is a senior living townhouse facility, also very nice. The people there really seem to like it. It's full all the time. I have some that are subdivided and some that are what was characterized as corporate owned, and honestly I would say that the corporate owned ones in my district are probably better maintained if they're local ownership. We have landlords that are out of state owners, developers. Typically those are on the lower end of things from what I've seen, but also the ones that are individually owned and subdivided, a lot of times you'll see one that's really nice and the next one's not maintained at all. I think that sometimes it's better to have one local owner of a lot of these because you only have one person to call if there's a problem. So I mean, based on what I've seen today, I think I would probably vote for approval of the plat because I think that a lot of accommodations have been made, and I think, you know, we have a serious housing problem in Shawnee County. We hear about it all the time, and the more houses is a better thing for us right now. It really helps us address our situations. So I would probably vote in approval of this.
Commissioner Rippon?
Yeah. I'm really torn on this one, I'll tell you. You know, when you view out of your area and you look at the whole, 3-4 mile zone, you're surrounded by a lot of subdivisions. It's growing. It just keeps going. And you could have more to the south of this. And, I know you moved out there to be out in the county, to have plenty of land, wide open space, but the city is just growing into you guys. And they have made a lot of accommodations over the first plan. They've addressed the lagoon, the number of units, screening the facility, one driveway. And there's nothing to keep somebody from putting a hog farm in there tomorrow. They could do it tomorrow. They could put a subdivision in there where you wouldn't have as much control over what's going in there. It's inevitable something's gonna happen probably with that land. Is this the best control you can have? Is this the best? And it may be. So, I don't know. Commissioner Cook, you have any thoughts?
Well, this does fall within the second commission district, so this is in my commission district. What I look at is, as mentioned, there is a need for housing. I think that we all recognize that there's a need for housing and quality housing within our district and within our commission and within our county. There is a high demand for housing within the Seaman area. This does address two of those concerns. The need for the characteristic of the neighborhood, as I was going with my questioning with Ms. Donnie, if Mr. Palmer was wanting to completely desecrate the characteristic of the neighborhood with the pasture land, this is not the way to go. A subdivision would have been the way to go. If Mr. Palmer wanted to bypass us altogether, he could have put in, as mentioned, a community shelter home, a group home, or even a residential care facility, a nursing home. Those are areas that he could have done. But by going this route, he is at this time, and I'm going to stress, at this time, limited to this growth. This is it. You're not going to look at phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5, but then you have to look at how does it affect Miss Valley. And I know that Miss Valley talked about that her property looks out onto this property. So she's going to be the ones, and other neighbors as well, are going to see this. We have 13 houses, or 13 potential maximum, but they're going to be built not all at one time. So we're not seeing everything built out all at once, but we're limited to this maximum capacity. And so I think that this does address those concerns by also keeping the ag land there and trying to incorporate in some walking trails or some other amenities for the tenants. I think those are things that we would look at, and we would want to add more parklands to the community. So there's not going to be anything that's going to be perfect. As said, anytime you move to, or if you've lived in a rural area, when people want to change and add more houses, change is there. But does this balance out those? Again, you have one entrance, not multiple entrances. You do have screening with the trees. It does set farther back. So that's where I fall. Commissioner Mays?
A couple more comments. Just, I'm looking at the map again, and you mentioned 13. There's 13 structures. But when I look at Page Lane, there's 12 lots right there on just that one street. I mean, it's not going to be a whole lot different from that. But what you don't see here are any sheds or anything like that. Our districts are so big, we see a lot of neighbor issues. I get calls on stuff like that, and a lot of times these 3 to 5 acre lots are more problems than you think, because the guy moves in next door and he has 20 junk cars sitting in the yard, and the grass is 3 foot tall. And I think that that's something you're not going to encounter with this. And we also know that the land next to this development is not going to be developed because of that 80-20 rule, or I guess in this case, 70-30 rule. So, you know, I think that long-term, this is probably a better use than what would be there, as to kind of piggyback off what Commissioner Rippon was saying.
I have one other question. This drive, of course, this is paved, right? And the cul-de-sac at the end, has that been viewed by fire departments to make sure they can?
Correct, which is why it is very long, and it has been, when we send these packets out, we send them out to townships, fire districts, you know, departments within the county. We send them out to Evergy, Gas, everybody.
Yep.
And the really no concerns came in, except for the fire hydrant, ensuring that there is a fire hydrant near the end of this drive, so that the hoses, because they have, I believe they said 1,000 foot hoses, that they can hook those up to ensure that they can get to the very last house.
And that fire hydrant, I assume, would also benefit the other neighbors
Absolutely.
as well.
It's not going to be limited to used by this development, correct. And I would point out with this map as a whole, you see a lot of boxes, which makes it feel like it's very clustered. But a lot of those boxes are the laterals or the systems that are going to be underground, and you won't see them standing up above ground. Really, all you're going to see are the 13 homes. You know, had it been a 13 single-family homes instead of 13 duplexes, we would be looking at this a little bit different. It's possible to have been a single-family house versus a duplex. You can do a PUD with single-family houses as well. So it's, you know, it's all in the way that you look at the project and the space. When they expanded that to that 11.5 acres, really the hope was to give them more room, not to put more stuff on it. It was to give them more room to spread things out and to make sure that each of them had the appropriate services that they needed for the houses.
The management company, if this was to go through, would be doing all the mowing at this
Correct.
facility?
It'd be maintenance-free in terms of the outside snow removal, mowing. And he had pointed out at the Planning Commission meeting that what you find is that these housing developments actually get maintained better than most single-family homes because they're on a regular schedule every couple of weeks or every week on a certain day.
Any other questions?
One other question is that they aren't going to have any signage out front, are they? There's no anything like that?
He would be allowed to have a small sign based on our sign regulations, but it would be minimal.
It won't be illuminated, though, will? I'm sorry. No.
Go ahead, that's a good question.
It could be illuminated. I would have to look at my sign regulations. I do believe that it can be illuminated, but it would have to just be spotlight little, not like big massive street light illuminated.
Yeah. I noticed they have the trees along Rochester there, but just a word of caution, don't get your trees too close to your driveway to maintain your sight triangles so
Correct.
people can
Yep.
see.
And as a part of when they come in for building permits, those are the types of things that we look at is, you know, setbacks, site distances, ensuring that they have appropriate views of the road.
Questions?
No.
Motion.
If there's no other questions, I'll make a motion that we approve the application.
There's been a motion to approve the application by Commissioner Mays. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, passes 3-0, which is required due to the protest, so it would show that it passes unanimously. So I do want to thank everybody for being here and for adding your input. We're going to take just a 2-minute break to allow everybody to leave because I know we have a number of people here for this item. And we'll take that as our 2-minute standing also. So Ms. Beck, you can stand. notified me I've exceeded my 2 minutes by then some. So we're back in session. Ms. Beck, before we begin with our next item, which would have been C1, I'm going to move M2, which is the very last item, up, and we'll take that item next. It's a little bit out of order, but we'll take up M2 next.
Okay. Okay, item M2, consider authorization and execution of contract C440-2024, the interlocal agreement for renewal of the neighborhood revitalization plan for an additional 3 years beginning January 1, 2025 through December 31, 2027.
Good morning, Commissioners. I don't have a ton to add to this item, other that this was presented to you in August and then adopted by the City Council at our October 15th governing body meeting. So as Ms. Beck said, we are just seeking approval of the interlocal agreement from years of 2025 through year end of 2027 for the NRP program. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I don't have any.
Commissioner Reyes?
Were there any changes from, that we need to, substantial changes that needed to be pointed out?
I would say the most substantial change that occurred was that North Topeka West moved in a positive direction from an at-risk neighborhood to an outpatient, which then took their eligibility for the NRP program away, but due to positive increases in their neighborhood health scores.
But that's the goal of the program, right? Is to
Sure
work
is.
your way out of those areas. And then when that happens, though, the houses that are currently, or properties, I guess, because they're not all houses that are part of that plan, or they don't lose their incentive that they've received, right?
Correct, yeah. So specifically speaking to that area, we had 4 projects that were in workflow through the development process that started in 2024 that have been grandfathered in. So they're still able to use the NRP because they had submitted an application and shown interest before.
Okay, appreciate that.
All right. Any other questions?
No.
Motion.
I think this is a great program, and I would move for approval.
Second?
Motion to consider authorization or to execute authorization, execution of the contract by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, take us back to C1.
Let me get my papers back in order. Okay. Item C, solid waste number 1, public hearing and consider approval of resolution number 2024-84, a consideration to adopt the Lake Region Solid Waste Authority's Regional Solid Waste Management Plan.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill Sutton, Shawnee County Solid Waste. I find it concerning on 2 parts. One, my reduced audience, the lack of interest in this public hearing, and the fact that I do qualify for senior housing. That's concerning. This agenda item, if you remember back earlier this year, we joined the Lake Region Solid Waste Authority with the regional coordinator, Shay, here, which us joining that authority, it triggered a revision of the solid waste plan for the region. So this is merely an adoption of that solid waste plan. It does require a public hearing, and notice has been published by the county clerk's office. And I do have Shay here to speak on the authority's behalf. So subject to your questions.
Any questions for Director Sutton? None. All right, then I'll make a motion to open the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made to open public hearing by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Are there any individuals wanting to speak in opposition to this item? Seeing none, is there any additional comment? Anything that you want to add, Shay? Okay, all right.
Was here earlier this year.
All right. With that being said, I'll make a motion to close and to adopt.
Second.
Motion to close and adopt by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
The resolution for this item.
Yep.
Yes, and we'll scan it and send it to you as I go, okay? Okay, all right.
Our next item.
Item D, Public Works, number 1, consider awarding a bid to Contech Engineering Solutions LLC of Lawrence, Kansas, and Metal Culverts, Inc. of Jefferson City, Missouri for aluminized and galvanized metal culverts and end sections. Funding depends on the size of the culvert and its location of use.
Courtney House, Director of Public Works. This is an annual request to purchase metal culverts on contract. Our local vendor contact provided a bid, the best bid on most of the products, but they did not provide bids on all of the products. So there were 12 bids that I awarded to Metal Culverts. They were the Metal Culverts Incorporated out of Jeff City, Missouri, was the only vendor that placed a bid for the products in blue in the tables that I provided you. With that, I look forward to your questions.
Questions?
No questions.
Motion?
I will move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item D2, consider issuing an RFP for professional design and CE services relating to a pavement replacement project on Southeast Croker Road, immediately south of the KTA's I-35, I-470 bridge. I-335 and 470, sorry about that.
I knew what you meant. Courtney House, Director of Public Works. If you recall, a couple years ago, we replaced the pavement between two bridges on northbound Croco Road. We removed the concrete pavement and replaced it with asphalt. That worked out very well, and the pavement still looks to be in great shape, so we would like to try another segment. This one will be south of the I-335 bridge, the southernmost bridge, about 400 linear foot, and we'll completely, again, full width, replace the concrete pavement with asphalt. We'll do that over the course of this next year, 2025. It's in the vicinity of 21st Street if you need a better reference. With that, I look forward to your questions.
Questions? Motion?
I'll move for approval.
Motion to approve by
Second.
Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you, Kurt. Our next item.
Item E, Department of Corrections, number 1, request approval of a sole source purchase and installation of a safety rail system for the cooling tower at the Adult Detention Center at a cost of $38,528.89 to be paid from the fiscal year 2024 detention budget.
Morning, Commissioners. Tim Phelps, Department of Corrections. Back in 2016, we had a need for, and so we were allowed to have some contingency funds to build a new cooling tower in the original adult detention center, and it did not include at that time funds to build a cage around it so it can be worked on. This sits on the 5th floor of our penthouse or of our facility, and it's up in the air, and it's a 25-foot unit, so we need to have the caging on it, and that's what this proposal is for. I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have.
Questions? I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item E2, request consideration and approval of contract C431-2024 with Armor Health of Shawnee County LLC, the second amendment to the original agreement, C242-2022, setting base costs for fiscal years 2025 and 2026 to address additional provider hours within the detention centers to be paid from the Department's Health Services budget for those years.
Tim Phelps, Department of Corrections. This is an item that helps solidify for budget planning purposes our relationship for the last 2 years of the current medical and mental health services contract. We have funding already approved for 2025, and so this will not be increasing those funds in any way. Be happy to answer any other questions you have.
Questions?
No.
Motion?
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item E3, request approval of emergency purchase to repair a ruptured main water line to the adult detention center at an estimated cost of $197,700 to be paid from the fiscal year 2024 detention budget. An insurance claim has been filed.
Tim Phelps, Department of Corrections. Back in early November-ish, we had the the primary line going into the original adult detention center rupture for our water services. And so we went straight to work trying to get that patched and operational again. And we also made an insurance claim for this, and that's still being considered. And so what we're doing is using remaining funds in our 2024 budget to cover these costs, whether it is a larger number or just the number we have to do through the insurance claim. So we happy to answer any other questions.
Commissioner Mays?
Do you guys have any water lines left that haven't bursted?
Well, remarkably,
We might want to look at how much it costs to replace them in advance.
Right, I agree with that. I think with this one, we have brand new ones in all of our parts of our facility right now.
Okay.
So,
Was the expense because you had to rip into floors and things like that?
well, that's a good question, Commissioner. We actually, because of the location that this was originally placed and where it ruptured, it was sitting under our giant generators that are in the original building. And so we knew we couldn't dig up underneath there because that would compromise the flooring for those generators. So we had to find a new route to go into and tie into the turnoff or the shut off inside our building. And that involved a lot of work. So that's probably why this was considerably higher.
Okay.
Well, I wish I could vote against it, but I'm going to have to move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Good luck with the insurance claim.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Our next item.
Item F, Facilities Management, number 1, request for consideration and approval of contract C432-2024 with MEI for courthouse elevator interior cab updates. Funding for this project will be from the Elevator Cab Update Special Project Fund, $40,000, and Facilities Management 2024 operating budget, $42,242.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nelda Henning, Director of Facilities Management. This project was originally funded back in 2021, and then we started renovating the courthouse, so we held off. So now it's time to finish this project. Unfortunately, the cost has gone up quite extensively, and I'm able to pay the balance out of my operating budget for this year, so I'd like to proceed with this project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, if we had done it prior, given the amount of construction that has gone through the courthouse with rubble to building materials, I think that we would be needing to redo the cabs anyway.
Probably.
Just like all of the hallways and stairways that we painted that are now scuffed and damaged from peoples and materials going up and down the stairwells. So, and treads that are half gone in the stairwells.
We will be buttoning everything up after the first of the year when the project is complete.
With the bathroom construction, are we going to have a lot
Another round of it?
people, construction materials that are being coming up and down the elevators?
We will, but it won't be quite as extensive. I mean, we've done a pretty full gut of the courthouse, trying to get all the old ductwork out. So, yeah, it's been a mess.
Commissioner Mays?
Will these have the ability to put the curtains up for freight?
I did not check on that. I can talk with the MEI about that and find out.
I think if we're going to be moving equipment and stuff, I mean, it makes sense to
At
put
least
those
one
in.
of them to have
Yeah.
the drapes. Correct.
Good. Commissioner Rippon?
What is this update gonna look like, these cab updates? Is it redoing the whole interior, or?
It is the whole interior. Currently, the interior has plastic laminate walls. We are going to stainless steel walls completely throughout to help avoid the chipping and cracking and scratching that's occurring on the plastic laminate. The flooring will go to a solid rubber floor so that we can avoid a lot of the issues we have with water and slippage in the elevator currently when we try to go in and clean them. We have found a method to keep the stainless steel in better shape over the last couple of years with all the construction going on. So we feel the stainless steel is the better route to go versus plastic laminate.
But this isn't a whole new cab, it's just a
It's just
facelift.
the walls, just the interior finishes. That is correct.
Commissioner Mays?
And then, just, are they going to be kept in, like, in sync with the architectural style of the courthouse and everything as well, so, okay.
Is this upgrade, is it gonna have anything to do with the controls that are in
Nope.
it?
No, all that stuff was done prior to my appointment with the county, I believe in 2019 or 2020.
Any other questions?
Nope, I'll move for approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays. I'll second. Motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item G, Information Technology, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C433-2024 for the renewal of Action 1 from Choice Solutions for the amount of $26,950, which is contained in the 2024 Information Technology budget.
Morning, Commissioners. This is just the renewal of Action 1, which we use to manage desktops and push out patches to all our computers. I can answer any other questions.
Questions? No? Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon. Is there a second?
Second. Second.
Second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item G2, consider authorization and execution of contract C434-2024, purchase of annual licensing for Cisco SmartNet support for network switches and DNA licenses through
Logicalis.
That's it. Utilizing State of Kansas contract pricing at a cost of $16,603.17 with funding for the 2024 Information Technology budget.
Morning, Commissioners. Mark Price again. This is our support for our Cisco, which is the devices that manage our network, connect all the county buildings.
Questions? I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item G3, consider authorization and execution of contract C435-2024, one-year renewal of duo licenses through Logisticus, utilizing State of Kansas contract pricing at a cost of $33,228 with funding from the 2024 Information Technology budget.
Morning, Commissioners. Mark Price for the last time. This is just our Duo licensing. Duo is used for two-factor authentication to help secure our email systems, desktop systems, to prevent from a credential harvesting attack and someone inadvertently putting a password in and being able to get into our system.
Questions?
No.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item H, Parks and Recreation. Number 1, consideration and approval for Parks and Recreation to utilize the Green Bush Purchasing Cooperative to purchase playground equipment at Gage Park with Athco and Aspire 2 Play LLC is requested for Phase 1 of the Gage Park Playland Improvement Projects. The attached protocols outline equipment to be purchased in the amount of $236,092.45 with funding from the Gage Park Improvement Authority funds.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation Department. So I would characterize this as our first phase of the renovations at Playland in Gage Park. And I've put together a little bit of just a short slideshow here to show you what we're talking about purchasing. This is the first structure that was mentioned. It's referenced as the Crab Trap. I don't know where they came up with that name, but the colors will be different, but that's basically it. I want to note that this piece is accessible. It's easy for folks to get on and off of all skill levels and abilities. So that's one of the reasons that we picked it. The next piece here is a zip line, and I've got another slide after this. It's a 3-bay slit zip line. One of the seats is the one here on the far right. Is for folks that would not be able to use the disc seats that are shown with the other two children. That's something that sort of straps them in, and it's a little bit more secure. And as I mentioned, it's 66 feet long, so it's pretty lengthy. And there's an aerial view of what that'll look like once it's all put in. And then last but not least, we have a 3-bay swing set and with a friendship swing, which you can see down here on this lower left corner. Just an added play feature for kids to get on that swing together. All of these, today, all we're talking about is the equipment itself. We will be back up later to do, our plan is to put artificial turf underneath the zip line and pour in place safety surfacing under the crab trap and the swing set. We didn't do it through these manufacturers because price-wise, it makes more sense for us to do it with the vendor that we'll go out for an RFP because it's enough, but we think we'll get a better price by bidding it out. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Tim?
No. I would move for approval. Or do you have a question?
No, not necessarily. I'll second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
I have a question. Is that zip line 55 plus? Is that eligible for 55 plus?
I think it is.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
going to be retired. I'm going to need something to do this year. I just want to be sure.
Ms. Beck, we expect to see you out there.
Yeah.
That and on the friendship swing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, that makes more
Friendship
sense.
swing might be a little tight.
I'll personally strap you in.
Okay, there. Item H2, acceptance is requested on the attached schedule of fees for the user of Shawnee County Parks and Recreation facilities and participation in the department-sponsored activities. This document establishes the fees for the participation in Shawnee County Parks and Rec Department activities as set forth in Shawnee County Resolution 2011-170.
Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation Department. So as the clerk mentioned, this is our annual schedule of fees that we bring to you for your review. I would just touch on a couple of things that I think you may or may not hear about. One is the establishment of a rental fee for a pickleball court. The reason I bring it up is because I don't want people to read this and misunderstand. We're not going to charge everybody to play pickleball on any of our pickleball courts, but this does establish a fee, a reservation fee, if someone wants to reserve a court, and that also plays into tournament rental fees. But the way we're wording this, and we're working with the Topeka Pickleball Association on this, because we're in the midst of trying to come up with an MOU between the county and the Topeka Pickleball Association. But our goal is to always have courts available for anybody that wants to come up and play pickleball. Now, there may be times when there's a tournament where that may not be the case, but we would also make it available for people to rent courts for an hour if they wanted to make sure they had time. But we would always leave courts open for I guess, free pickleball play. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about that. And then also the other area where we've made some changes, and although they're pretty small, is golf. We have raised some of our golf rates. And to be quite honest, well, we every year our golf staff analyzes sort of where we are in the golf landscape, what other courses are charging in the area. And we're consistently in the middle to lower end of that. We're now getting to the point where we're really at the lower end, and our rounds, we set records again for the third year in a row. We will have record rounds at all three courses. And so we're getting to the point where it's a great problem to have, but they're full all the time. And it's, like I said, that's good, but it's also telling us that we probably need to adjust our fees a little bit. So those are the two things that really stood out to me. Those are the things that we talked about the most internally. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Rippon.
Pickleball, are they scheduling tournaments for this spring, or?
I don't think we have anything in the works yet. I think we're still trying to work with that group on some sort of MOU, but we're obviously open to that.
Okay.
We hope that happens.
Commissioner Mays?
Tim, how do we enforce the reservation of pickleball courts? Are we gonna have staff on site that puts up a sign, or are people just gonna have to run somebody off?
Yeah, no, I had the same question. That's one of the things that I'm concerned about. We'll have a way for, if you reserve a court, you'll get a receipt, you'll get something from us. We'll go out, much like we would do on an open air shelter. We'll slide a notice in there that this court's reserved on such and such time. And then the person, we would encourage them to bring their receipt with them so that they could show that they have it. That works. I mean, in the world of open air shelters, that's how it's done here and other places that I've been. It works 99.9% of the time. Most of the time people see that, they understand, they move. When they don't, then we get a call. So, but we will not have staff on site. Our staff will come out in the mornings, place the cards. That's how I'm anticipating this working. That's what we've talked about. I'm looking at Josh Mikey, our recreation superintendent, and he's been dealing directly with the Pickleball Association. So I hope I answered your question.
Will we have any signage up that people can, to reserve a court?
Yes.
Please call this number or whatever?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Rippon, I might note that for your birthday, you can rent the Potwin Drug Store for 8 hours for $544.
So noted.
All right.
Just his birthday, or?
Well, he can, and it's open to the public, but.
I'm over 55, so is there a,
All right. Any other questions regarding the fees? All right, now, motion.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item H3, approval requested to create a new golf course assistant superintendent position with an annual salary of $62,099.85, including benefits. Funding is available within the golf revolving fund. Approval is also requested to fill any subsequent vacancies resulting from this hire.
Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation Department. So as I mentioned before, we've had several great years in a row here at golf. And actually Forbes this year grew more than the other two, had a big jump. And in the past, we've had a gentleman that's worked there for a long time, has kind of kept things together. He's retired, and now we're trying to manage Forbes with staff from Lake Shawnee, and we don't feel like Forbes is getting quite the attention that it deserves. So we'd like to create this position and have somebody stationed over there every day, sort of running things at Forbes Golf Course. As the clerk mentioned, this will be paid out of our golf revolving fund, which is completely funded by the golfers.
Questions? Motion.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second. Motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you, Tim. Our next item.
Item I, Health Department number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C436-2024 with Dr. Vlad Dumitriu for professional medical and healthcare services for the patients of the Shawnee County Health Department with active tuberculosis and/or tuberculosis infection, and to serve as the backup local health officer for the period of January 1, 2025 to December 31, 2025 at an annual estimated cost of $4,575 per year to be paid from the departmental budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. Carrie Delphs, Clinical Services Division Manager with the Health Department. This morning, we're asking to renew our contract with Dr. Dumitriu for TB consultation services. He provides our nurses with orders for treatment, labs, imaging. We're also asking him to serve as our backup health officer, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Commissioner Mays, or Commissioner Rippon, sorry.
How many TB patients do we see a year?
Patients with active TB disease, usually between 2 and 4. Patients receiving treatment for, or patients with latent infection, anywhere from maybe 100 to 150.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item. Thank you.
Item I2, consider authorization and execution of contract C437-2024 between Shawnee County and Aaron Locke, MD, MPH, to continue serving in the capacity of health officer and medical director for the family planning program. The contract period is for January 1, 2025 to December 31, 2025.
Good morning, Commissioners. Teresa Fisher, Director of the Health Department. This is for a new year contract with Dr. Aaron Locke. Dr. Locke has served as our health officer since February of 2021. My team and I have just been delighted in the work that we've been able to do with her through mostly our clinical services with standing orders, but she also takes on a very broad role with medical officer and then as the health officer and the medical director for family planning. So we do have this budgeted in our budget for next year. It's paid from a variety of grant funding in our departmental budget. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
I'll move for approval.
Second. Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Our next item.
Item I3, consider authorization and execution of contract C438-2024, an agreement with Cox Media to provide a recruitment campaign for the Shawnee County Health Department Nurse Family Partnership Program for 3 months at a cost of $25,000 from December 15, 2024 to March 15, 2025. Funding will come from our departmental budget.
Good morning, Missy Middendorf, Family Health Division Manager, Health Department. As the request said, we are hoping to
That was me. I touched it with my finger. I really didn't mean to do that.
enter a contract with Cox Media to help with us our RN recruitment, specifically our nurse family partnership, where we've had some trouble with getting nurses to apply, and we're hoping to reach out within 60-mile radius with all the ideas that Alice Bishop here with Cox Media could share if you have any questions. And this would be paid out of our department fund that we already be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. C or for Cox? Just, do you want to talk about what your campaign will kind of hit on or reach out to?
Good morning. I'm Alice Bishop, and let's see. I'm just going to go to the page so we can go. There's a couple different ways with advertising. Obviously, we have to have the right message, so we're working on that, which is going to be really exciting. I think we're going to focus on video. That'll help with awareness just versus like static ads. And then we're going to run just really targeted campaign toward reaching RNs because you know, if we just run on just like TV, you know, that just, it reaches a lot of people, but we need to be more focused. And then we're going to run some Google search. So if someone puts like RN jobs near me, that sort of thing, then the county's website to apply will come up. And so they'll be able to click to apply for the baby and nurse RN position. So that's kind of, there's a little bit more details, but do you have any more questions?
I don't.
Do we target nursing schools?
You know, we kind of talked about that. Do you want to address that, Missy?
Definitely have attempted many times. We've gone in a couple times over the years to talk to the students. They come to our, they can sign up and come to our building and spend a half day with us. But yes, we are definitely working on that some more. We have emails out to nursing schools, but we've most recently have tried to go further out than just local because we've got 2 great nursing schools here, but now we are like, we've got Emporia, and Teresa said there's one in Salina I wasn't even aware of. So we're learning about more nursing schools that we need to reach out to, and you know, if we even go to them and talk about our programs or send them videos. And I know we've offered for people to even come in and spend a half day with us in our building if they're interested in what we're doing. There's just so many people that don't understand the work we're doing as a nurse family partnership and other RN positions in the health department. We hear it all the time, like, oh, I didn't know you guys did that there. Yes, come work with us.
Okay, great. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed?
No.
Passes 2-1 with Commissioner Mays dissenting. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item.
J, Court Administration. Number one, consider approval of the request for the court to transfer the remaining balance of the 2024 court administration budget to a special project fund to create a self-help center in the Shawnee County Courthouse.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lee Welch, Court Administrator, Shawnee County District Court. As Ms. Beck read, I'm requesting that any balance remaining in our 2024 court administration budget be transferred to a special project fund to fund the building out and completion of a self-help center on the second floor of the courthouse.
Questions? Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon. Is there a second? Commissioner Mays?
So I'll second, but I do want to just kind of also say that I know on your small item capital outlay, you've got several requests. I would say we'll move this money because obviously it has to go somewhere right now, but if this isn't moving along, I think it'd probably be a good idea to think about maybe moving it to some of these other projects as well.
Very well.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item J2, consider request and authorization of contract C439-2024 with Interior Landscapes for courtroom gallery bench seating via the state contract with Interior Landscapes at a cost of $61,220.52 with funding for the 2024 court admin budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lee Welch, Court Administrator, 3rd Judicial District, Shawnee County District Court. This is a request for purchase of wooden bench-style seating in 6 courtrooms that have yet to be, have new gallery seating placed. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Mays?
So this is going to replace the old vinyl.
It is.
Yeah.
We have 2 courtrooms that still have the old avocado green. I think we got rid of the orange a couple years ago, but we still have a couple that still have those
Yeah, much needed.
vinyl seating.
So I'll move for approval.
Commissioner Mays has made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item K, Sheriff's Office. Number one, Sheriff's Office is providing the Commissioner's acknowledgement of the annual payment of the Kansas 911 Coordinating Council per the MOA C88-2018. The 2025 costs are for the primary site and the backup site 911 phone system in the amount of $271,626 and will be paid out of the 911 funds.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeremy Rabb, Director of Communications, Sheriff's Office. It is time for our annual payment for our 911 lines. These lines do supplement the main 911 center as well as our backup center. And it's probably important to note that this payment will be coming out of the 911 fund. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions? I'll make a motion to approve.
Well, second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Passes 3-0. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item L, Audit Finance. Number one, consider authorization and execution of contract C428-2024 with Vallejo Behavioral Health Care, Inc. for $2,750,000 for community mental health services for 2025.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jennifer Sauer, Financial Administrator. I'm just here to present the contract with Vallejo Behavioral Health for next year, for 2025. It just formalizes the amount that was set aside during our 2025 budget.
Questions?
No.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item L2, consider the authorization and execution of contract C429-2024 with TARC, Inc., allocating $1,059,951 for the provision of certain specified social services to the residents of Shawnee County in 2025.
Jennifer Sauer, Financial Administrator. Just like our previous item, this is another amount that was decided during our 2025 budget, and this is just formalizing the contract with TARC for 2025.
Questions?
No. I'd move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item M, Commission Number 1, Commissioner Rippon to appoint Matthew Myron Linewetter, D.O., to the Planning Commission.
All right, well, Myron's in the Rossville area. He's a retired doctor. I've worked with him on doing a couple trail plans. He basically did the one for Rossville, helped out a little bit there, and also the one for Silver Lake. And he's very civic-minded, and he's interested in the job, so I think he'd be a good fit.
Great. So I support. You're making the motion?
Yes, I'm making a motion to appoint Myron Linwetter to the Planning Commission.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item M2 has already been acted on. Item 5, public comment.
This is an opportunity for any member of the public to address the commission. Seeing none. Our next item.
Item 6, administrative communications.
This is an opportunity for any department head or employee of the county to address the commission.
Good morning, Commissioners. Larry Ma, Shawnee County Treasurer. My compliments to the Planning Director for clearing the room. I don't want to remind everybody that 1 week from tomorrow, taxes are due. December the 20th, as always. So you have 1 week to get those taxes paid. You can pay by mail, in person, online, and we do have a drop box at the courthouse, and you can drop the payment off at the motor vehicle annex. You can pay by cash, check, or credit card. And I want to just take an opportunity to explain the extra fees for paying online and by credit card. I'm getting a lot of questions. People seem to think that this is a money grab on the county's part. It is not. First off, there is a $2 fee for the convenience of doing it online. That fee goes to a vendor contracted by the state of Kansas. They split that fee evenly between the state of Kansas and the vendor. There's also a 2.5% fee for using a credit card anytime you use a credit card. People need to know that anytime you use a credit card, you are paying a convenience fee. In general, if you're doing it, doing business with private business, they just roll that into their overhead and increase their prices. So you're paying for it, you just don't know you're paying for it, and it ranges from 3 to 5%. Government handles it just a little bit different. We don't charge all taxpayers for the convenience of some taxpayers to use their credit card. We charge the user, the actual user, the 2.5%. So we are not trying to grab for money. We don't see any of that. That goes to the bank, it goes to the vendor who handles the credit card processing. So just so you know, you're paying it. We just happen to be upfront with it and charge to the exact user. And to give you a kind of an idea of what that might mean to the county if we chose to pay that fee, we handle somewhere between $300 and $500 million a year. And while I would never anticipate everybody would pay by credit card, if we paid that 2.5% on just the $500 million, that's $5 million. And we don't want to be loading up our taxpayers with those kind of costs. Any questions?
Questions?
That fee that the state takes, where they take half of it and the vendor takes, we don't see any of that.
We don't see any of that. It started out about 6 or 7 years ago. That was free because they wanted to encourage people to renew their tags online. Since then, they've added a lot of services. You can do your driver's license online. You can pay your property tax online. So they came up with a $2 fee, and that pays for those improvements, plus pays for the state administering that process. So yes, that $2 fee is split evenly between the vendor and the state of Kansas. Shawnee County doesn't see a penny of that.
So noted.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Other administrative communications this morning.
morning, Commissioner. Sean Ziers, Marketing and Communications Supervisor at Shawnee County Parks and Recreation. We have two fun events coming up. One coming up Saturday for children. It is our Children's Shopping Spree at the Garfield Community Center. It's a free event where kids can be, volunteers will take the kids in to go purchase presents for their family, and then they will have that gift wrap for free as well. That's from 9 to 2 this Saturday. And then the other event is Old Prairie Town Christmas, which is December 21st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that's a lot of fun. It's a $5 entry fee, but there's a lot of cool things going on, including writing letters to Santa, making s'mores at our fire pit, and reading stories to children, which I get to be a part of, which is pretty cool. Our Candy Cane Capers also is happening on December 17th. You can get details on that at parks.snco.us. We're still looking for people to deliver candy canes to. It's filling up quickly, though, so if you're having any interest in it, you should sign up. And I'm open for any comments or questions.
Questions? All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other administrative communications this morning? Commissioner Rippon, anything?
Spent one evening working holiday happenings at Old Prairie Town. That was good. Sells out every year. I don't even think they have to advertise for that one, so it's a good event.
Commissioner Mays?
Just remind everybody to go hit Tark Winter Wonderland.
Might also add that there's the Red Stocking Breakfast this weekend, Saturday. Your commissioners are going to be there to serve up some food, so if you want to come down and be served by your commissioners, there's your opportunity, and it helps a good cause too. Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item 7, executive session.
There's not a need today, so we are adjourned.